Welcome to Loving Life Creatively with Lizzie Menz, the show that dives into the heart of our community's incredible talent. Join us as we explore the world of creativity through inspiring interviews with local artists, personal growth coaches, live demonstrations, and the countless benefits of creating. Every single episode, we'll explore our guests' inspiring stories, celebrate their unique voices and visions, plus showcase their amazing creations. Hello everyone, I am your host, Lizzie Menz, and I am thrilled to take you on this incredible journey through the world of local artists, musicians, woodworkers, coaches, and all kinds of creative souls. Today, we welcome my longtime amazing friend, the remarkable Tina Breeze Wallers, director and co-producer of our show, as our host. Yes, we're switching things up today. Together, we'll explore my creative journey, the exciting transition into life coaching, and the deeper story that fuels my passion for inspiring others. Get ready for an uplifting conversation about growth, transformation, and the superpower of creativity. With the brilliant Tina at the helm as today's host, we'll dive into the heart of my artistic path, my evolution into life coaching, and the experiences that shaped my story. This episode is all about embracing creativity, purpose, and the limitless possibilities that unfold when we follow our passions. Tina, I am so excited to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for taking this leap of faith, and this has got to be way different than what you're used to.
This is a little out of my comfort zone, not gonna lie. I'm more comfortable on the other side of the camera, truth be known. But it'll be fun, it'll be interesting, and I cannot wait to hear the rest of your story.
Oh, thank you so much, Tina. So, as you all probably don't know, Tina sits in the production room, which is just right that way, and she's always saying, "Talk to me, Goose, talk to me, Goose." So
we got to check those audio levels, so I needed to get some sort of a word in there. So that is our thing, and we start every episode off with that, and it's become quite a tradition for us.
It has. One of my favorites.
Yeah, mine too.
Yes.
Mine too.
Yes. Awesome. So, thank you so much for agreeing to be the host, and let's join in the fun.
Yes.
Let's do the switcheroo.
We're going to do a switcheroo.
Yes, we'll be right back.
All right, well, welcome back. And I am so excited to share Lizzie's story with you all today because this has been a long time coming. When we decided to talk about her journey and her experiences to get her to this point, we both decided that this was something that needed to be talked about, and if it can help anybody or guide anybody or be an inspiration to anybody, that's what we want. Isn't that right?
Yes, it is, Tina. It certainly is, yes.
So Lizzie's going to share a lot about her personal journey and how she got to this point. But first, I just want to say how proud I am of you. This is now our 12th episode of this show, and I couldn't be more proud to work with such an amazing professional such as Liz, and also to let you all know that she is the a recent recipient of a Wisconsin Community Media Award for this program. And that doesn't happen when you just go in and just fly by the seat of your pants. There's a lot of work and planning that goes into each show, and this girl does it. So thank you, Liz. Congratulations to you on your award. And this year, this season, we are going to aim much higher for the stars and see where we land. So
Thank you so much, Tina. Well, I couldn't have done it without you. This is a team effort for sure.
well, that
And
is the team
Yes.
part of that is,
Yes.
and so, you know, again, you're such a professional, and it is my pleasure to be a small part of this. And, you know, I'm the behind the scenes person. I'm the girl in the control room, but, you know, it's weird being here, but anyway.
Well, we're going to get you in the hot seat.
Oh, yeah. So Lizzie's in the hot seat today, and I can't wait to ask her some of these questions that we've been asking all of the other guests. So with that, let's get started.
Alrighty.
So Liz, tell me how you got started. What is your inspiration? How did you get into the life coaching, and how did you become who you are? Tell me about you.
Oh my gosh, where do I begin? I don't know where to begin, except for, I suppose, you know, one of the things that my dad has always said to me, that I was always a creator. I was always digging holes out in the backyard. I was always building forts. Anything that I could do to create. Dad was a woodworker, so I would grab hammer and wood and the saw, and I'd be out in the backyard. Dad would be inside working on something. I'd be outside, you know, working on something, building something. And I was always drawing. I was always coloring. I was always doing that stuff. And then when I hit school age, Dad said that that's when I kind of quit. And I do remember teachers, you know, of course they mean well. And I know we've had other guests on the show, you know, talk about this journey, you know, of having teachers teach us how to do art, how to make, you know, what we try to, you know, all the things that we're trying to create. And I just remember feeling squished. I thought that I just wasn't good enough. So I quit. I did quit for a very, very, very long time. So when I hit junior high, though, I loved drafting. I loved technology. I loved the physics and all those kinds of things. So I was really good. I got to be really good on the drafting board. You know, back then we had the drafting board, not the computer generated drawings. And as I got older and hit high school, I kind of walked away from that technical world for a little bit, but then when I was married and we were stationed in Norfolk, Virginia, I wanted to go back to college. And I called home and talked to my dad again. And I said, Dad, I really want to go to college, but what do you think? What should I do? And I was reading all that stuff. Back at that moment, I was the front desk manager of the Comfort Inn before I left Virginia. So I was really thinking that kind of world. Really wanted to get into being a manager, being in management.
Hospitality.
Yeah, hospitality. Yep, right, exactly. And Dad said, you know, I think you would be happier being in drafting because you absolutely loved it. And I thought, you know, I'll go check into it. So I did and went to ITT Tech, and lo and behold, that's when I started that route into the drafting, you know, drafting world. And the cool thing was at ITT Tech in their AutoCAD, I was learning AutoCAD as well. You learned all of it. You learned civil and architectural and mechanical and electrical and electronics and project management. It was a 6-quarter project, you know, in that world. And I was always a big airplane nut because of my dad. So I always wanted to be more of a mechanical. I wanted to be an aeronautical engineer, and I wanted to go that route. But I love drafting. I mean, I really, really love that. The creative side of me, right? And one part of our semester we would be on the drawing board. The other part of the semester we'd be on the computers. And to give you some perspective, when I was on the front desk manager at the Comfort Inn and on the computer, I didn't have to turn it on. I didn't have to turn it off. I just logged in. I checked people into the rooms, checked people's out. You know, I did all of the audits and stuff at night, but I still really didn't have to touch the actual computer. So now fast forward, I'm at ITT Tech, first day. I don't even know how to turn the thing on. I have no clue how to turn the computer on. So I feel like I've come a whole long way after not even knowing how to turn that computer on, but into AutoCAD. And fast forward, our 6-quarter project, we had to go out on the town and find somewhere to volunteer at and do a project for. And that was going to be our 6-quarter project. That was our 6-quarter, we had to do a presentation in front of our class, and whoever else at the school wanted to do that, or, you know, wanted to watch your presentation, and then we were graded on it. I was procrastinating. I didn't know where to go, didn't know what to do. I'm not from Norfolk, Virginia. I don't know what to do, you know. And our head of student service came to me and asked me what project I was going to do. And I told him I was procrastinating just a little. And he said, well, Lizzie, he said, why don't you call NASA? He said, they're just right up the road. And I said, what? And he said, what do you have to lose? And that's true. That is true. What do I have to lose? So in front of all my classmates, and you know, there was a huge walk of life. There was a lot of people that were out of the military that were in my class. And then there were a couple of high school students, you know, too. And there was only really me and one other girl in the class. Everybody else, you know, was men. And so they're all watching me on the phone when I call up NASA, and lo and behold, they said, yes, we would love for you to come and work it with us. And I was so excited, so incredibly excited. Obviously, I was a nervous wreck my very first day, and the first day that I actually showed up at NASA. And the reason why I'm telling you this whole story is I really want people out there to know that just ask, because you never know what's going to happen, and you never know what adventure that's going to take you on. So back to my first day, I show up. And I'm a nervous wreck. I don't know what to wear. I don't know what to do with myself, right? And I get to the front gate, and the gentleman who is the security guard, he asks me where I'm going, and I told him who I was and why I was there, and he said, honey, didn't you know NASA is closed? And I said, what do you mean NASA is closed? Well, this was back in that time where they were negotiating contracts and all sorts of stuff, and the government kind of was closing down certain things, and NASA was kind of on strike. And he said, don't worry, darling, in his very Georgian accent. He said, don't worry, they will call you. And I said, okay. So I went back home. Well, then they did. They finally called me. The woman on the phone, she apologized profusely for forgetting about me, which was fine with me, you know, absolutely fine with me. But now when I went back, I knew a guy. I knew somebody, you know. So I pulled up again, and he said, oh, you're back. And I said, I'm back. You know, I went in and got my badges, and, you know, we started out the day. So I know one of the questions you're going to ask me is about mentors, so I'll share with you a little bit, sneak peek of one of my biggest mentors. They brought me in to NASA, and they sat me in this room, and this room was completely empty. There wasn't anything else in this room except for just a long line of computers. And computers, obviously you now know, computers I'd never seen before, you know, big, small, little, you know, all over the place. And the gentleman sat me down, and he said, Liz, he said, just go ahead, get acclimated to our AutoCAD, because I had a version upscaled from what I had in college. He said, get yourself acclimated, and I'll be back for you. And I said, okay, sounds good. So literally, there's this long line of computers, and they sit me in this chair. I get myself on the computer, and the chair is broken. I mean, it's kind of where I'm sitting all cockeyed, and you know, it's just not the greatest chair. And there's a chair that's down at the end that's in front of this bigger, huge computer, which I found out later was a big Unix-based 3D modeling computer. So I switched chairs because there was nobody else in there. I mean, there was even no pictures on the wall, you know, in this place. So I was sitting there working away on AutoCAD, and in walks this gentleman, and he says, good morning. And I said, good morning. And he walks by me, and he's heading to where I switched the chair. So my little being is thinking, oh no, you know, so he sits down and he says, seems like somebody stole my chair. I jump out of my chair, I moved it down to him, had to switch chairs, you know, and he looked at me and he thanked me. And I'm sitting there, now I'm sweating, and I'm thinking, I don't know who this guy is and whose chair I stole, you know. And he started laughing. He got up and he looked at me and he said, you must be Liz. And I said, yes, sir, I am. And he said, how would you like a tour of NASA? And he said, my name is Donner Grigsby. And he stuck out his hand and said, how about a tour of NASA? And I said, I would love to have a tour of NASA, but what about the other gentleman? And he said, you leave him to me. And I said, okay. So I'm following this guy like a little 4-year-old. I'm following this man, and we went into, you know, the gentleman's office, and he said, you know, Liz, and I'm behind him, you know, looking around the corner, and he said, you know, Liz, and he said, yeah, and he said, she's mine for the day. And Donner did. He took me on the grand tour of NASA. Well, come to find out, you know, Donner is a rocket engineer, very, very, very high up in NASA, and literally every single office that we passed as he was taking me there, people would stand up and would shake his hand. Hi, Mr. Grigsby. Hi, Donner. You know, Donner knew everyone. So, of course, all day long I'm thinking, who is this guy? Well, Donner retired from NASA about 10 years ago now, but has become to be one of my biggest mentors and one of my greatest friends too. And I still talk to him to this day. So,
what an amazing story.
Yeah, thank you.
How interesting that you, first of all, I can't even imagine how overwhelming that must have been. But I do want to just revisit what you had said, what have you got to lose? And I feel like a lot of times, myself included, you don't want to just take that step because you're nervous, you're afraid, you're intimidated, you're so many things running through your head. But if you never take that step, if you never jump off the ledge, you'll never discover the great things that you can do. And what I love most about that story is that you did that, and you pursued it even after they were closed, and you went back and that is so amazing. And then you got to meet the Mr. Grigsby, and you got to have the amazing tour that you did, and look at how far just that. Look at what an influence and what a piece of the puzzle that has become in your life. That is an amazing story.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you. And as you're talking, I'm thinking about and I didn't dawn on me until us actually talking about this, is you think about the creativity of the folks that work at NASA. Big dream creativity, huge dream creativity.
Yeah.
And for me to get that opportunity and what I did is I helped them refurbish a Mach 10 wind tunnel. I didn't even know what Mach 10 was when I was there. I had no clue.
Yeah.
We hear of Mach 1, we hear, breaking the sound barrier, but Mach 10, really? And the gentlemen and the ladies that I got to meet at NASA that have these big brains and these, and all the crash sites, and we could actually do a show on just the things that I saw at NASA and the things that they worked on. And that 3 months that I was with all of these people and getting to go out and talk to R&D and the people that built the models that they tested in the wind tunnels at NASA, and all just wide-eyed. For a little kid from Afton, Wisconsin, wide-eyed to watch all of this, it was such an inspiration.
Unfathomable.
Yes.
Truly.
Agreed. Yes. Good word. Very, very good word. So, fast forward after I graduated from college, then I worked at a company called Microcraft that we did build the models that they tested in the wind tunnels at NASA.
Can I stop you right here? Because don't you have a couple of kids by this point in your life?
Yes, I do. Yes,
okay.
I do. Yes.
Tell us about that, because you were married to, and you were stationed, or your husband was stationed over there, and you had 2 little kids.
Yes, and they were little. You're right. They were kindergarten and under. Aaron was 4, and Aaron was 5, and Brian was 4. And yes, their dad was out to sea for 6 months during this time when I was in college, and and I was going to college, and the interesting thing is I never really thought that I was that great in school. I got good grades. I did all the homework. I did all the things, but I never really thought that I was that smart really in school. And then when I hit college, I pulled almost a 4.0 the whole time. So I found that. Thank you. I found that niche, right? I found the thing that really fueled my brain.
Well, as a potentially, for all intents and purposes, a single parent, if your husband was gone out to sea for 6 months, you are the mom and the dad and everything to your 2 little boys, and you're going to school. Now, did you have to work at that point too? Were you? Because obviously, being a single parent to 2 little boys under 5 and going to school full time is clearly not enough. Were you working as well?
No, thank goodness.
Oh, thank goodness.
No, I didn't.
I think you had enough on your plate.
Yes, yes. Well, and being military, you don't make that much money. You really don't. So we squeaked by, with a lot of things, and prior to that, living in Italy, I was one that, I suppose you probably know now. I was one who always got involved in everything, know. And when we lived in Italy while he was out to sea again, I got involved in everything. I taught people fitness. I taught kids gymnastics. I really got involved. I got involved into the community where we live too, which of course is a whole nother story, probably for a whole nother day. Yeah. But just being in the military and being around all of the people that, you know, are defending our country, it was my way to give back, to go back to college and to be a part of all of this. It just, there's a camaraderie there in military families that you just don't get anywhere else. It's nothing I have ever witnessed again in my lifetime.
A very close-knit
Yes.
community.
Yes, yes, and everybody sticks up for everybody, and everybody's there for everybody, and everybody is supporting each other. You know, in the street that I lived on, there was a lady that lived across the street that would always say to me, Lizzie, you're going to burn out. You are going to burn out. You're doing all the things, and, you know, I love the beach, so I would go to college. I would gather up the kids, you know, as soon as I got out of college. I'd grab Aaron, and Brian was at our neighbors, you know, and I would gather everybody up and we would hit the beach. You know, we were at the beach during the summertime every single day. And we would play, too, because you have to have that playtime, right? Yeah. That balance, that balance is so important for family.
Yeah, yeah, and especially with raising little ones.
Yes.
You cannot be the, you know, it's great to be focused. It's wonderful to be focused and knowing your goal and striving ahead to attain that goal. But you also have to, I was just talking to somebody yesterday about it, when you have children, you have to make them your priority, you know, and you can work in the school, you can work in, you know, work in all of these other activities, but, you know, your main priority is your little ones. And
yes.
Providing them with the fun and excitement and teaching them all these teachable moments.
Yes.
That's awesome. That's hard. I can only imagine how hard it would have been for you back then.
Yeah, it was that. We had a big map up on our dining room wall so that when Al would call, we could point where he was at, you know, so the boys and I would always know the trek, you know, the 6-month trek and the 6-month trek back home. So it was an adventure.
Wow, that is amazing. So let's bring that full circle. And how did you get into your art career and your life coaching career from all of these experiences? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, you know, after the whole NASA thing, we would fly home all the time and bring the kids back, you know, to see my mom and dad, you know, and every time we get on the plane to go back out to Virginia, everybody would cry, everybody. It was a heartfelt thing. And I got to really thinking about how it was so important in my life that I got to grow up with my grandma and grandpa, you know, all of them. And we went and spent time with our grandparents, you know, and I just really wanted Aaron and Brian to have that in their life. So I made the big decision to leave Virginia, and Al did too, you know, to leave the Navy. He was going to re-up to, you know, for another 4 years, 6 years, whatever that was, and we both decided that we were going to move back to Wisconsin. So we moved back to Wisconsin, and I worked for a paper making machine company, and to fast forward, it ended up going bankrupt. So the market was so saturated with engineers and drafters that I got the opportunity to teach at Blackhawk Tech the difference between AutoCAD, which I'd had a good degree in, and Beloit Corp had their own drafting package called Belcad. And I was one of the contract drafters that knew both, in and out. I was in and out of them all day long. So Blackhawk Tech actually called me and asked me to teach a class. Well, that's when I started really realizing that I really liked to help people. I really liked to treat people with kindness, decency, and respect, and help them see a better life and how they could flourish and the different opportunities out there, and started talking about my experience at NASA and to get out of your comfort zone and learn and grow and move in your life. You know, don't just stay stagnant, really move in your life. So when I was teaching at Blackhawk Tech, the instructor flat out told me, he said, Lizzie, you're not taking my job. You're not going to be an instructor. And I thought, okay, fine. But we knew the market was so saturated with engineers and drafters. So then I got into banking. And I really liked banking. I really liked helping people with their finances and all those kinds of things in our world. And I will admit I wasn't that great at it either, because we were poverty stricken. Being in the Navy, it was definitely not a very high paid job. And with me going to college and working at Beloit Corp, and then after getting bankrupt, and I took a huge pay cut, which really does something to you. It really does something to your psyche, and I don't know. I don't even know how to explain that, but it was a stepping stone, and I knew that. In my professional growth, I knew that if I was going to change a whole career, that I needed to, get my foot in the door. And so being a teller, I then moved up into personal banking. I through my career, I moved into business banking, and then I was an investment banker. So I always had this trek of moving and growing, but I also loved to teach everybody in that same trek. We'd get a new teller in, and I would teach her or him how to do things, and I was personal banker. I always was teaching. So now fast forward, I went into, quick view, I was an insurance agent for a while, and then I went back into banking after being an insurance agent, and then I got into graphic design. I moved into being in a marketing field, and I loved graphic design. And InDesign and Photoshop, the Adobe suite, was so close to AutoCAD that it was really easy for my brain to hook into. And then that creativity really started to even more shine, right?
So like a stepping stone, kind of a...
Huge stepping stone,
yeah,
yes.
Wow.
Yes. And then fast forward, the bank that I was working at went, the FDIC took it over. So now I'm back in the same boat. Now what? Now what do I do? Well, then that's when I got into working for Can Do in the nonprofit world and in development, raising money, raising funds for, the mission of Can Do, and also doing some graphic design too when needed. And that's really even more, like all of these steps really kept cultivating me into wanting to help in so many ways. And as I did that, then I was part of the air show. I got on the board of directors for the air show. I was a volunteer coordinator, really cheerleading and rallying people in to help with the air show and to help with Can Do and I used to do tours at Can Do. I only got a chance to do a couple before I actually left, but that was so important to me, just the influence and getting to share Can Do's vision and mission and how they just partnering with Can Do would help our world. I just really got into that trek. So it kind of seemed like when I started painting, and I know on my website I kind of have the story, so I won't delve so much into that. Somebody can go onto the website and share the story. But when I decided to come home after visiting my Aunt Kathy and wanted to paint that picture off of the Pacific, that's when the painting career started. And that's when I really, really, really found something that I was so passionate about and quieted my squirrel mind, my squirrel on rollerblades mind, And at the same time, I was really drinking a lot at that same time. My kids were grown and gone by this time, and I was out partying with my friends because I really didn't get a chance to do that much growing up, being a single mom, having their dad out to sea a lot, and I went through a couple of divorces too, so I had a lot on my mind. And
and you're such a social person that I feel like anybody that meets you for the first time will never forget you. So when you're out and about, I can only imagine that every place that you go, you probably see at least a couple of people that you know. And I know you and I love you for this, and you're the first person to come up and be like, oh my gosh, hello, and you give them a hug, and you're so focused on them and how they're doing and all of this stuff that I can only imagine that your social life, being such as it is, back then too, would be easy to fall into that trap. Hey Lizzie, great to see you. Can I buy you a drink? Well, sure. Why not?
Yes,
and
right.
then somebody else buys a drink, and then the next thing you know, I can only imagine that was probably a very slippery slope that was very easy to slide down into.
Absolutely. Well, in our life and in Wisconsin, what does everybody do?
Exactly. Fish frying Friday nights and beer drinking the rest of the time.
Yeah, exactly. And after a hard day's work, what do? We sit down, we belly up the bar with all of our friends and have a few drinks, which is amazing for people that it's okay with.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. It was, for me, we lost Aaron and Brian's dad, due to drinking and driving, and I soon realized, that I didn't want to live that life. I didn't want nothing. I didn't want to live, or I didn't want to not live. I mean, I definitely didn't want to be in that same boat.
Yeah.
And I get excited and nervous about even talking about that because, that was a big change. That was a huge change in my life when I made that decision to not drink. And my husband, Brian, he had been in sobriety already for 6 months when I met him. And I actually went into this thinking that I was going to be his support. And then I soon realized that maybe I was the one that also needed support too. And the reason why I share this too is I was painting, drinking wine and painting when I was home. That I really thought that that's what I needed. I thought that I needed to drink to quiet my mind down enough and to bring out the creativity. I don't know why I thought that. Maybe it was just because my brain was so squirrel on rollerblades all the time too. I had a really, really tough job at that time as well. I was working in engineering field. I was an estimating manager, and it was a rough time in my life. And when I met Brian, I'd gone through another awful divorce, and I was just kind of a little lost and trying to swim through everything. So when I decided to take that leap of faith and stop drinking, I really thought that I wasn't going to be able to paint anymore. I thought it was gone. I really thought it was gone. And I was frustrated because I really thought it was gone. I sat down a couple of times to paint, and I hung it up for a while. I really did.
Because you associated the two of those. You can't have one without the other. And so then that became your life for a period. And then when you just stopped the one, you felt like you couldn't do the other. How interesting.
Yes, yeah. And then lockdown hit.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, good old lockdown. And to your point, being such a free-spirited, want to be around people all the time, well, I have asthma and allergies. Oh. And so we as a family had a big sit down, and it was like, Lizzie, you can't go anywhere or do anything. So I was one of the first ones at Can Do that went home and stayed at home. Didn't work outside of home because of that. And, even the cleaning supplies bother my allergies so badly. So everybody was, bleaching it up. Everything was bleach, every single thing. And I couldn't handle it. My lungs couldn't handle it. So I was working from home, and I was going crazy. And that's when Brian said to me, oh my gosh, honey, you're driving me nuts. Pick a wall and paint it. And so that's when I, picked our dining room wall, painted this big beach scene, and then that's when all of this really kicked off. So
the COVID pandemic was the impetus for getting you to paint that wall, and from that, this and all of this came from that?
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes. And I think I also had enough time in AA and working the steps and working through all the whys, right? All the whys of why I was drinking. I got to the point where I was calmer, and I agree. Yeah, it was the catalyst that kicked everything off. And then I started dreaming the pictures, dreaming the paintings, all of that.
Goosebumps.
Ooh, yeah. And at the same time, I started seeing all these posts of life coaches, that they were helping people. And I thought, well, that's in direct alignment with me. I always love to help people. I love to watch them grow and find that passion, find forgiveness, get rid of resentment, all the things that I had surfed through for so many years and healed from and found forgiveness. And it was such an important time in my life that I was starting to realize that once you found the forgiveness and got rid of resentment, it was gone. It was completely gone. Like, I couldn't think it back up unless if somebody would tell me a story that I would think, oh yeah, I can resonate with that. And as I started sifting through all of these certifications that I started working on in the life coaching, it was a direct correlation to creativity for me. Direct correlation. Because creativity is what quieted my mind down, and I could open up that box, that bucket of hurts and insecurities and all of that. Okay, let's dig through that and let's heal that while I was painting. And why wouldn't someone else want to do that? And it's so easy to be afraid to paint. It's so easy to be afraid to be creative. And you really have to do it to understand what it is. I know I probably say this ad nauseum sometimes about how you can talk about the scientific facts of what happens to your brain when you create. Heck, that's how we were born, was through creativity. And why not? Why not just create? why not do it? Really, really experience it and see how it can change your life. So everything that I do now with all the life coaching certifications that I've gotten throughout time, it just really gives me the tools to unlock or to help someone else unlock something in them and give them worksheets and other things. So it's kind of been riding the wave, both kind of parallel at the same time, diving into that world and using creativity to unlock stuff for people.
So your self-realization, your self-journey, learning about yourself and what makes you tick, and working through that alcoholism piece in your life really started to make you more self-aware. And in that, you realized how much you wanted to help everybody else. And I love that, because your creativity, the way that you create, the way that you are, using that to center yourself, if I may, and using that, I think, is probably the biggest asset and the biggest tool for you to be a life coach, that you can use your own experiences and your own personal journey to guide other people through whatever they might be going through. I mean, because obviously you've been through it, and the COVID pandemic, which, was very, I think, traumatic for a lot of people, and, at the very least, completely life upsetting. But to use that self-awareness, to use that, to get it out, to be able to realize that you can get that out and paint a wall in your room, in your dining room, and use that to go and be the launching pad for this and that and the other thing. That is truly amazing. That is something that I feel like if that hadn't happened, maybe the rest of this it would have probably come at some point. But gosh, like, let's focus on that. Let's have a pandemic, and let's focus on Lizzie, and let's make sure that Lizzie is the best Lizzie that she can be. But not only that, like, let's share that with other people. How amazing. Like, so now how many, you said you have a lot of life coach certifications. Can you go through those with me? Can you tell me what they are and what they mean?
I might be able to remember them all. I think I might have 10 or 11 now. So
wow.
yes. The first one that comes to my mind is people pleasing, because I'm probably, they wrote the whole thing about me.
Really?
Yeah, because as I was going through all of the sessions, they wrote the book on me. So, being a people pleaser, how many out there, raise your hand, how many out there are a people pleaser? It's easy. It makes you feel good, right? It makes you feel good to put a smile on somebody's face, but sometimes it is to your detriment. And, we do kind of go overboard, because sometimes you don't have that opportunity to look in on you, and you kind of hide. It's an easy place to hide. And I think that I learned that over time, in relationships, that if I was the people pleaser, then I was making everyone happy, and then there was no spotlight on how sad I was or how lonely I felt, or being a Navy wife was tough. It was tough to be alone all the time, and especially as young as I was, to be a Navy wife and to be thrown into the mix of a place that I didn't know a soul. And being such a people person, I think again, it's all those words, all the roads that cultivate us to be who we are. I think really that was probably one big road that I became to be the people pleaser,
Yeah.
Really. I also have an art therapy one too as well, which of course really resonated with me when I went through that. I have a yoga one, a yoga life coach, which I didn't even know that was a thing. And I love yoga. So, that's kind of, I actually did creative yoga with a gentleman who's a yogi at Evansville, and in Evansville at Creekside. And when I saw that life coach certification, I thought, how cool is that to be able to wrap it in, and to do it after I'd already held that class too was pretty cool, that. And I have the regular life coach, a general life coaching certification, and I did go through the master life coach as well. Right now I'm doing an NLP life coach certification, and that is neurological. Now I'm not even going to remember what the acronym is, but it's basically how we're how we're cultivated through our entire life, how our brain works, and how it is truly trained by all the people we encounter, all the teachers we have, all their parents, and our loved ones, and our sisters and our brothers, and everybody in our world. It's really how our perception is cultivated, and how you have the power to change that perception in your brain. You really can. You can look at the world with a different lens. And it's all about using creativity, and it's about looking at ways to retrain your brain.
And kind of break the cycle.
Yes, break
right?
the cycle. Yes, perfect.
If you have had a childhood of, whatever, some sort of dysfunction, you can stop that. You can break that cycle. That is amazing. I love that.
Yeah, the power of our brain is really, truly amazing.
Indeed.
It really is, yes. And when you put your mind to it, anybody out there, if you put your mind to it, you can really do anything.
Yeah.
You really can, yeah.
Well, it sounds like you have yourself put your mind to a lot of different things, because you don't become a life coach and all of these other certified coaches without putting your mind to that, without changing your own narrative, without changing and stopping breaking your own cycles. And that's amazing.
Yeah, and it was interesting too, all of the life coaching certifications I went into, it was really truly to heal something in me. And now fast forward, the Gazette article that's out there where, Kylie really focused in on the life coaching side. And it dawned on me as I was going through that I typically don't, because creativity just authentically brings out certain things, certain aspects of someone's life. And having those tools now in my tool belt, right, to help someone else, I didn't focus on that at all, because it was really tools that helped me grow and shape and want to be there for someone else in a more profound and different way.
That is amazing. If only we had more people that, can take themselves out of that situation and put themselves in a situation to be a help and an inspiration and a guide to other people. I think that, the world would be such a much better place than it is. But I am so happy that, for any of you that, I don't know did you mention that at the beginning, Liz and I have been friends since junior high school. That's where we met. And we have been friends, life takes us different paths, and then we kind of merged back together, and then apart again and merged back together. And we worked together in high school at a local restaurant. We were both cooks, and the only two female cooks that they had at that time, and girl power, right?
Right.
Like
right.
we were
forced to be reckoned with.
Well, yes, we were. And I'll tell you what, we were probably knocking the socks off of everybody, all those guy cooks that we worked with. But beyond that, we have been good friends, and I cannot tell you how happy it makes me to be working with you, and just to hear your story and hear how far that you have come, and challenges. Everybody has their childhood and the things that they have to deal with in their childhood, and then everybody gets into adulthood, and then it is amazing to me how many different things can get thrown at us from all different directions. And it's up to us how we overcome those, how we deal with those, because we can't control anything outside of our own being. We can only control how we react and sometimes we take the path that we know we really shouldn't be going down. And other times it takes us a while to kind of, I think, veer back onto the main path. And I think that you have done that. I think that you have had so many challenges throughout, in your young adult, and being a young mom, and going through all of that with, your husband being in the service and everything. And then it's just amazing that you are where you are, because to take all of that and just become somebody who is so helpful and so friendly and so outgoing and so personable, like it's amazing. And I think that I, for one, feel lucky to know you and still be a part of your life after all these years, and us to be on this journey together because we're learning. We're learning. You all are learning, and we're all in this together. And so, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thank you so much, Tina. As you're talking, I could feel the tears welling up because it's such a heartfelt thing, And when you were talking, I kept thinking, that I think I've always not taken the path of least resistance ever.
Yeah.
And you and I are still a force to be reckoned with.
Darn tootin'.
Yes. To partner together to do this together, and for you to have that faith and trust in me, and right back to you, for this, and we are really here together, and sometimes it is the higher power, it's God, it's the universe, has kept us together. And you're right, the crisscross, we're always crisscrossing each other, but to get to do this with you is a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel very privileged and fortunate to be in this situation with you.
Thank you.
All right, so moving right along, I really want to know, what inspires you the most, and what do you try to incorporate in your teaching sessions when you're coaching other people?
I love, I think there's probably a bigger word, but I love to watch someone else paint, draw, color, and watch the transformation on the canvas. I mean, most everything I do is acrylic painting, right? But when I have someone, there is a certain person out there that came to one of my classes, and she said to me, I just feel really blocked. I used to create, and I just don't do it anymore. To watch her flourish, to watch her paint, to watch the excitement in her face and her eyes in my class. If you can picture this, everybody's, at their own desk. Everybody's got their own easel and their own canvas and their own paints and all that. And I help everyone pick out what paints that they're going to create, and everybody picks out a picture of a sunrise or a sunset, so it's all about big, bold, beautiful colors. So I help everyone pick out those big, bold, beautiful colors, and to watch them merge them together and form this thing, and the excitement. I love being the cheerleader. That is such a passion to me, because it's like your little kid spirit, right? We all, as you're an adult, sometimes your little kid spirit gets kind of squished down. I'm not supposed to act like a little kid. I'm not supposed to be this, not supposed to do that, not supposed to, right? It's all the not supposed to. I love watching somebody's little kid come out and go, oh, look at that, and that 4-year-old, and then that goes, look what I did, Mommy, look what I did, Daddy, look what I did, Grandma, whatever that is. That is my passion. That's being the cheerleader and helping someone do that. It's outstanding.
Yeah, I can see that there is a great deal of satisfaction in that for you, and to be there to help guide people, and like you said, to witness that, to see that woman that just finally let go and get her creativity back.
Yes.
That's amazing.
Yes. And she's become to be one of my closest friends, and I don't even get to talk to her that much. We don't get to see each other that much, but she's like you and I, even though we're dividing and conquering and we're running parallel, I watch her do all these things. Now she's taking all these classes and she's doing all these creative stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is amazing. Yeah. This is amazing. And to know that maybe I just had a tiny part in that, just sparks my soul, sparks that creativity.
Yeah. Well, that is amazing. That I think seeing that and having that self-satisfaction too, that you were instrumental in somebody else. I think that is amazing, and I think, isn't that what it's all about for like most people?
Yes. Yeah. Most definitely.
Yeah. Well, good. Let's move on to, I want to hear about some of your most powerful and memorable experiences. Can you share with me?
Yeah, sure. So I have 2.
Okay.
And they are really adventuresome, powerful experiences. So when you talk about powerful, I'm going to talk about this. Getting out of our own fear and taking that leap of faith and trying something new, right? So the first one I want to talk about is when we lived in Italy. We lived on a small little island in the middle of the Mediterranean, and it was called La Maddalena. So there's Sardinia is the Italian island. There's Corsica is the French island, and La Maddalena was right off the north coast of Sardinia, Italy. And while I was there, as being a military, a dependent, you could go down and get your Italian boat license. And I had driven boats on Rock River, here in town, which I got to tell you, Rock River and the Mediterranean are two completely different animals, and I really didn't know exactly what I was getting myself into, at all by any means. But for $5, you could go down, and this Italian man, I believe his name was Salvatore. He was the marina. He worked at the marina, and he was the one that could teach you. Now, I really wanted to learn how to do the sailboat, but in one person, you can't do it. And do you think that I could talk any other Navy wife into doing this? Oh, nope, not even a little bit. They all thought I was completely nuts. And at this time, Aaron and Brian were only 1 and 2, so they were babies. And I was, of course, as you know now, I was very adventuresome. So I went down, had the kids with the babysitter. I went down, got my Italian boat license, and we learned in a Zodiac boat, which a Zodiac, it has that rubber round, and then it's the fiberglass bottom of the boat. So every day after I got my Italian boat license, I would go down with my $5 with Aaron and Brian and pack our lunches. Our favorite was peanut butter and jelly, Cheetos, and Capri Suns. And all of their sand stuff, and you have to know this, that La Maddalena is a very small island, and we would walk, and we lived on the back side of the island, kind of, not all the way on the back side, but it was quite a long distance. We'd get up in the morning, put our suits on right away, I would pack everybody up, we would walk, and with the double-wide stroller, I'd get down to the marina, I'd park the double-wide stroller with Salvatore, and I would get us into the boat, and we would go and visit deserted islands every single day. We did that. I shouldn't say every single day. It feels like every single day, but we had a ball, just a ball. And the Mediterranean is rough. It is a very, very rough. Now, there was one moment. So Salvatore told me, he said, I don't want you to go into French waters. He said, you stay out of French waters. And there were buoys that marked where the Italian waters were and the French waters. So there was one time that the kids, I might have been a little overzealous and threw us all in the boat when we were all starving. And 1 and 2 year olds are not very happy when they're starving. Yeah. So I parked the boat, and I shouldn't say I parked the boat. I shut the boat off when we were in the middle of the Mediterranean. And we sat in the bottom of the boat, and we were eating our peanut butter jelly and our Capri Suns before we were going to go to the island. And remember, Salvatore said, don't go into French waters. Well, we drifted into French waters. And all of a sudden, I heard a cigarette boat light up. And I looked up over the top of the boat, of course, being little, all Aaron and Brian and I are down, you can't really see us. I popped my head up, and there is a cigarette boat coming towards us, and I, of course, freaked out, and I'm over there trying to get the motor started, and it was a pull motor, so I was trying to get it started, and
goodness. Finally
I got it started, and we moved back into Italian waters, and they cut the engine, and we were fine, but talk about... My heart's racing. You're in a different country.
Yeah.
I'm an American in a completely different country.
Wow, what an adventure, though.
It was an amazing adventure. That was amazing. It was just amazing. But again, if I'm so glad that I did that, because if you don't take that leap of faith, then you look back and go, dang, I wish I would have done that.
Yeah.
And I try not to do that. I try to just do it. Do it no matter what. So the other thing that was the most profound and powerful was my neighbors, when we were in Virginia, when we were stationed in Virginia, my neighbors were on the aircraft carrier. They were on the JFK. And they were having a Independence Day cruise. Now, my neighbor's wife was pregnant, so she couldn't go on the ship, and didn't want to. She didn't want to go on the ship. So they came over really one morning and scooped me up and took me on that. And that was a dream come true. They did, and I don't even think that the Navy even does this anymore. They did an entire entire air show off of that aircraft carrier.
Wow.
And when they got me on the ship, you know, of course, I'm a little kid in the candy store, you know, and all the, I mean, all the fighter jets are sitting on this, and they did a rescue. You know, they threw a dummy off the ship and showed us how they rescue somebody who has fallen overboard, you know, and that happens. I mean, it gets really windy. There was a moment in time that we were on a tour and we came around the corner and started going up the stairs outside of the ship, and the wind was gusting, and of course I didn't know that was going to happen, and I had a windbreaker on, and my windbreaker went whoof, puffed up, and the guy behind me, who I did not know, grabbed me and he said, "Take that off right now." And I took it off, and he said "Just give it to me." And so he held on to it. He was a Navy guy. You know, he held on to it for me so we could get back up on deck, you know, and so the gusts it's a thing. That is a thing. But once we got up there and they were talking about that they were going to have the air show kick off, there were some vets that were all standing there in their uniforms, and they were all decked out with all of their stars and stripes and their hats and all their pins and all that. And I went up to them, and I was the little kid that, you know, tugged on one of the gentleman's jacket, and I said, "Gentlemen, do you mind if I stand in front of you?" I said, "Don't worry, you'll never know that I was here." Well, you know me. I talked their ear off, and of course they did too. And they told me lots of stories of being in the Navy, and the one was a pilot, you know, in the Navy and stuff. So it was outstanding. I was so grateful and so proud to stand on that ship and talk about the need for speed. You know, in Top Gun, they talk about the need for speed. There it is, that entire ship, this ship that houses so many people that sometimes they don't see each other for 3 months, just shakes from the power of these planes, you know, taking off and landing. And to get to watch the resting gear and the catapult, the resting gear is what catches the plane when they land, right? And the catapult is what shoots them off. But there's a whole lot of speed, obviously, that has to happen on those jets when they take off and when they land. And it just there's nothing else that has topped that as far as a moment in time that I will never forget. And I loved to share that story because, again, if I wouldn't have said yes, if I wouldn't have been there, I would have never gotten to see that. And it's just incredible. And to watch the camaraderie of people in the Navy on those ships, and they're literally putting each other's lives in their hands. You know, from the guy in the plane to the guy that is maneuvering them around to making sure everybody's clear, all of it. And I can't imagine when they're out to sea and it's raining, and I just can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. But they really have each other's backs. They have each other's lives in their hands. And to be a part of all of that was one of the most outstanding moments in time.
That is amazing. That's a wonderful story. And again, if you hadn't stepped out of your comfort zone and said, "Yes, let's do this," I think, you know,
yes,
how would that have ever happened? So,
right.
Wow,
Yeah.
that is definitely an amazing adventure.
Well, the neat thing was too, I was in college, of course, still too.
Yeah.
And so I did, one of my projects was on the arresting gear, of course, of the JFK. So to get to go down and interview all these engineers and all the guys, you know, that were working on, the guys and gals both, you know, that were working on the arresting gear, and understanding just the pressure that they need to harness to rip a plane off that deck was just priceless.
Well, and sharing their story too, because how many people talk about that?
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Right. Absolutely.
That's amazing. Wow, I would love to do that someday.
Yeah.
That would be totally
I encourage
cool.
if anybody can ever do it. Like I said, I don't even know if they do air shows off the ships any longer.
Right.
But, you know,
But wow.
And the Stealth did do a flyby.
Really?
Yep. It was back in the day when the Stealths were, it was, and a couple of the guys that were on the ship knew it was going to happen. So they grabbed me and said, before they could even say, "Plug your ears," I was in that, and it went by. So that was pretty outstanding as well. Broke the sound barrier too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Talk to me about some of the challenges that you have had to face. And I know that you've talked about some of them. You know, and not that they're insignificant, but tell me about some other things, insignificant, major, what has been challenging for you so far?
I think probably the biggest challenge that I have had throughout time is disappointment. When I was a kid, I really wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be a stewardess. I wanted to do anything that I had to do with airplanes, and during our career day, in high school, there was a college that was there, and they were recruiting, people to be, well, back then, of course, it was called stewardess. I suppose it's called flight attendant nowadays, and probably get in trouble for saying stewardess, I have a feeling. But it really was something that I really wanted to do. And I feel bad for my mom and dad because, of course, when you're a kid, it's everybody else's fault, right? And my mom and dad sent the check to sign me up for this college that was in Florida. And I was so excited to go, so incredibly excited to go. And that was my passion. That was my mission. That was, all things,
That's
things.
What you were going to do.
That was what I was going to do,
Yeah.
And my dad did some checking around, and he found out two very important things. First thing that he found out, and I can't imagine being my dad to tell me this too, with this wide-eyed little girl that is, I get to go, and he has to come and tell me this, right? First thing was, you weren't guaranteed a job. You go to college, you pay all that money, and you're not guaranteed to go work at an airline right off the bat, Second thing was, I wasn't tall enough. What? I'm not tall enough.
Wow, that must have been a tremendous blow.
Yes, I was mad.
How tall did you have to be?
5'5", I think, or 5 foot. Either 5 foot or 5'5".
Quite a bit under that.
4'9.5". Just don't make it. Just not even with stilts.
Not even with stilts.
No,
yeah.
no, not even with it.
No.
No. And I was crushed.
I mean,
I was, really, really crushed. And I was in the point of, well, now what? Now what do I do, with my life? And, those kinds of disappointments, I think, and we all have them. We all have disappointments in our lives. And when I as I got a little older, I decided I was going to go in the military. And I sat down with my dad again. I said, okay, well, maybe I can go into the military. And I went and I visited the recruiting office downtown Janesville. And when I walked in, the Air Force guy wasn't there, but the Marine Corps guy was there. So I just sat down with the Marine Corps guy, and we started talking. And he said, well, you probably wouldn't be able to fly planes in the Marine Corps. He said, but we could probably waive your height depending on, your scores and stuff when you take the test. And he said, if you really want to be a mechanic, maybe you could be a helicopter mechanic. And I thought, okay, yeah, that's what I want to do. I was all tucked in, I was always still very wide-eyed. And so I went home and told my mom and dad that this is what I'm going to do now. I'm going in the Marine Corps. And my dad said, no, you're not going into the Marine Corps. He said, you would get eaten alive. Knowing me, this kind little sweet, big-hearted girl, he said, no. And I was mad. I was, again, Dad, you're taking all my dreams away, and so Dad said, I'll do this for you. He said, let's go down and we'll talk to the Air Force recruiter. And I said, okay. So we went down and talked to the Air Force recruiter. Well, actually, I take that back. We went to the Marine Corps guy first, and Dad called him out on everything that he said. And Dad was right. He was just blowing smoke. It wasn't going to happen. And, or a very, very slim to none chance that was going to happen. Mm-hmm. So we went and talked to the Air Force guy. I was all in. I signed up, passed with flying colors. They waived my height. You had to be 5 foot. And they were so excited because I wanted to be a jet engine pilot or a jet engine mechanic. So I couldn't be a pilot. I wasn't tall enough to be a pilot, but I could be a jet engine mechanic because I'm small enough to climb in the engines, right? Small enough. There we go. Perfect. Perfect. Now I have this vision. Now I have this purpose. Now I know what I'm going to do. I know what I'm going to do, right? Yeah. 3 days before I go to MEPS, to get all the medical stuff down, I find out I'm pregnant with my son.
Oh no!
Everything's blown out of the water. I mean, that's again blown, completely blown. Obviously, I'm not I'm scared and not disappointed. And their dad was in the Navy. He was stationed down in Georgia. So So, well, here we go. Okay, so now we're getting married, and now I'm having a kid, and that was, that was another big change, big change in my life. Not, I mean, obviously, that's not a disappointment. Having kids is not a disappointment, but when you're,
It's a challenge when you had your life planned and you had your path picked out.
yes. So again, now what? Now what? Yeah, exactly. Thrown off the boat, get back on the boat. Thrown off the boat again, get back on the boat. So all of these directions, but I think that all of those things, going through being a Navy wife and being alone a lot and not knowing people made me go out and meet people, which I don't think I ever had a hard time meeting people either. No matter where I went, I wanted to talk to people, right? But when you're in the Navy, you don't have that much time either. 1 year, 2 year, 3 year stints, you meet someone, you kind of get to know them, and now you move on to another place. So you're always disheveled, right? You're always moving. In fact, I think at one time I counted that I moved like 34 times by the time I was in my 30s. Wow. So from being in the Navy and just all the things, and the failed relationships and, all of it, it just was the disappointment. And humans are always going to disappoint you. Things are going to disappoint you, but to get over that and to not let it squish you, I think that kind of became to be my mission, was just to keep going, and gosh, who would have thought that I went from that to then getting to work at NASA, to going to college, almost having a 4.0, all of those things, but those, you get beat down a little bit. You get beat down on it, so then that's a challenge. Okay, how are we going to get through this challenge? We're going to learn this. Okay, we're going to go this way. We're going to, so it's a challenge, pivot, disappointment, pivot. I think those were the biggest challenges. And not getting kudos where kudos were due. Having bosses and managers and things like that don't give you the pat on the back, don't say, hey, great job, this was outstanding. Having managers that you have an amazing idea, you take it to them, and then they take it from you. All those disappointments. You're kind of always, it's life, right?
Yeah.
It really is life. So I think the biggest hurdles, and then now moving forward to being a painter, now you're showing what's in my mind. This is in my mind. Now you're showing the world. How scary is that, to show what's in your little dream mind and sharing it with the world? And I now feel free. I now feel free from all those disappointments, all of the things that have happened to me. I now feel like that little girl in me can just shine bright, and it doesn't matter anymore. But it took me to be in my 50s to be able to not feel disappointed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, when you are an emerging young adult, you've just graduated high school, maybe you're going to college for the first time, like you're so full of hope, and everything is just there for the taking. And I feel like we always have such high hopes. And then little by little, and it happens to everyone, I feel like little by little you're beat down, and there's a diagnosis, there's a person that let you down, there's a job, there's so many things that will beat you down. And we as adults have to deal with that. And I think it's the way that we deal with that, and we don't have the tools in our toolbox when we're younger to see it for what it is. It was a circumstance. Like, it happened, and maybe it's not anybody's fault. Maybe it is somebody's fault. But we don't have it's hard for us to kind of move past that and get beyond that. And I feel like in our 50s that we have had so much of that. We've had so much to learn from that. It's wonderful, in a way, to be this age and kind of look back and say, with you, all of the hurdles and the challenges that you've had, and the different things throughout your whole life that have thrown a curveball to you. It's like You're knocking it out of the park, girly. You're doing this. You're opening up your mind and putting it on a canvas, and you're quieting yourself on all of these outside forces that are talk, and it's hard. It's super hard to put that aside and focus on you and what's good for you and what you need and what your goal is and what, like I said, you can plan your path as much as you like. You can plan your path and you can say, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to get there and this is where I'm going to go. But I'll guarantee you 9 times out of 10, something's going to happen that's going to throw you off your path. How do you deal with that? How do you get back on your path? And I think that you have found the answer. You're helping people. You're creating, this amazing artwork, and it's so beautiful. And I'm sorry, is that Gus? Is this Gus?
That is Gus.
This is Gus,
Yes.
and that is
Oscar.
Oscar. So for Lizzie to create Gus, and what a beautiful painting that is.
Thank you.
I love Oscar. I love the colors that you used. And is that did you just see that in your mind, or were you in a jungle at some point and came across an Oscar-like feller and you were like, I'm going to pay you someday, with a smile on your face? Tell me, how did that come about?
Well, the vision actually came from me painting 3 paintings as a commission for the Late Meals on Wheels.
Oh.
And one of the ladies that works there, she wanted me to paint an owl. And this was the first time I'd ever done a commission piece. And so I was a little apprehensive. I was thinking, oh my gosh, how do I do this? And are they going to like it? That's the biggest thing, right? Are they going to like it?
Right.
And I continued to talk with her, and she was giving me pictures of owls that were ceramic owls, and the big eyes, and the big bright colors and all that stuff. And so I finally called her and I said, okay, I said, what do you think? And she said, oh no, she said, I give you all creative, you use your creativity. I give you all permission. And I was like, oh, okay, now it's game on. So when I painted the owl, and it's, that's actually on my website too, the owl was morphing out of the ground, because we're all connected. We're all made of all of us are all made together, right? So I wanted to have this look that the wings were literally being morphed out of leaves and out of the ground, and then the owl was starting to flap his wings, and that was a vision. That was something that I dreamt. It was just a vision. And when I was painting the owl, I saw him. In my dream, I saw him, and I thought, oh, I want that orangutan. Now, I had met an orangutan. Well, I shouldn't say I'd met her, but I met an orangutan at the Henry Vilas Zoo, and that orangutan was locked eyes on me, and she had her baby was next to her, and she was sitting, behind, obviously behind the glass, and they have the fence, the railing. And I did this on the railing to watch her, and she did the same thing. And I was in love with this orangutan. Yeah. So, yes, so there is a story behind, the orangutan that I saw, but having him morph out of the jungle was because of the owl. So now when I was painting him, I saw the walrus. Now the walrus, I actually got to see the walrus. My inspiration is Garfield, which was the walrus at SeaWorld. Oh, okay. And the walrus fell in love with me, and I fell in love with him. He kept coming over to the tank, and you see those videos that like a little kid, the porpoise, whatever is playing with the little kid, obviously through the glass. Mm-hmm. That's what Garfield did with me. And even the lady, the zookeeper, she said, oh, he loves you. I said, I love him right back. So that's how he was born.
Amazing. I love how you have taken that and created and made it your own. And I don't think that I've ever seen anything like that before. And so, like you said, we're all connected. We all come from the ground, or we're all, earthly beings, but that is truly amazing. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Talk to me a little bit about how you stay motivated. How do you manage your time? Because you're a busy woman. You've got a lot of different things going on. What keeps you focused, and how do you manage that?
I feel like I'm always skiing behind the boat.
Well, as a self-described squirrel on rollerblades, this will be an interesting answer. I can't wait to hear what you have to say about that.
I have learned, because I do have that squirrel on rollerblades, I need to do things in pieces, and to-do lists are my friend. You know, with everything, with my full-time job, and then, you know, the part-time job, well, down to creating the intakes and outtakes for this. I sneak it in when I can, because it's also very important to me to take care of myself and to be there with my family and spend time with my family and go and visit my mom and dad. And my dad's teaching me how to play the mandolin, which I'm failing miserably. Sorry, Dad, because the time, it is the time, you know, time is precious. And
I suppose.
Being the vice president and the board of directors for our air show, you know, we're heading into that in July. So I'm doing all the graphic design for that, which I absolutely love, but it's right back to the time. So for me, I prioritize, and then because I am a squirrel on rollerblades, once I cannot really focus on something, I'll move to something else and get that done, and then I'll move to something else and get that done. So I literally am really skiing behind the boat, and oh, there's a stick, whoop, okay, there's a person, whoop, around that, hey, let's hit that wave, okay, let's go, now we're on the wave, and then, you know, I can work for a while. So it is an ebb and flow, and don't be so hard on myself. You know, really get done the things that we get done. I think the thing that I am still learning, though, is I overpromise a lot, and I'm always saying, oh, I didn't get to that, but tomorrow I'll get to it tomorrow, kind of thing. So I want to get better at understanding the time and understanding my creativity too, how long it takes me to do something.
Yeah, that's hard. I always overestimate my ability to get something done in this amount of time, because it always takes me a lot longer than that.
Yes.
So yeah, not being so hard on yourself, that's probably key, and forgiving yourself for the little things, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
That's a really good answer. I'm glad that you talked about that, because I feel like a lot of people are in that same predicament as well. You know, you're being pulled, whether you're a parent or grandparent or, you know, whatever. You've got responsibilities at home and at work and, you know, socially. So trying to navigate that and fit everything in is not always going to be easy.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Yeah. So Liz, I'm going to ask you about your mentors. You touched on a little bit earlier with the mentor at NASA, but who else has been a mentor or somebody who has influenced you in your life?
Oh, you know, it's difficult for me to pinpoint certain people for certain things, because there's so many. There's just so many. I have always been the type of person that when you're in with me, you're in. And if I have learned something from you, I'm all ears. I'm a sponge. Tell me more. Tell me more. So over time, I have had so many. And you're right, like Donna. You know, my mom and dad were, you know, mentors. That my dad definitely on the airport, you know, airplane side of things, hearing his stories, knowing that he was in the Air Force. You know, the Donner, like I said, I had a friend I was with in Italy that I can say was very much a mentor. He's the one that taught me how to snorkel and the Mediterranean and what that was all about, which was incredible. That was just incredible. Heck, all the way down to sometimes you don't even know the person, right? And they all of a sudden are a mentor. Because I remember being really young and Mom and Dad taking us to Pearl Lake and watching the scuba divers and thinking, I want to be that. I want to be a scuba diver. You know, so even though I didn't know them, they were mentors to me, you know. And the bosses, I've had some incredible bosses. I had one that was at Associated Bank, and she was a very black and white type of a woman, but she really taught me how to not take things so personally. She really, really did. And I've got some really good friends of mine that have always been there for me and supported me no matter what crazy thing that I wanted to do in my life. Because as you can tell now, that just from little things, I have done a lot. You know, heck, I mean, you were even my mentor when we worked at A&W. You know, you were the one that was teaching me, and we were doing things together, and we were navigating being teenagers together, and talked a lot about life in general. And
Well, the challenges of being two females and the only two cooks at that time, like during the week, obviously on weekends it was a lot busier and there was more people around to take on the load. But, you get a Tuesday night is Coney Dog Day.
Yes.
And, how many Coney Dogs can you make in 10 minutes?
Right, right.
But yeah,
like, don't burn the cheese curds, remember? Don't burn the cheese curds.
Don't burn the cheese curds.
Yes, you get in big, deep trouble for burning the cheese curds.
Yeah. Well, a lot of things. But, being the only two female cooks that there were, and then when we were scheduled together, just the two of us, that was, like we couldn't always muscle the stuff.
Yes. Well, and, speaking of that, being a woman, even in drafting, in engineering, was difficult. And, working at Beloit Corp, it was very difficult. I was not treated very nicely. 2 reasons. A, because I was a girl. B, because I had worked at NASA. I got that thrown in my face a lot, too.
Sure.
So I had mentors at Beloit Corp who believed in me. Paul Schmondel was one of them. He really was an amazing boss. And even though I did quit for a little while at Beloit Corp, he was the one that called me back. And it was because of the reason, because of the way I was treated is why I left. And then, fast forward, when I was again in engineering, having those men that wrapped their arms around me and said, "Come on, Liz, I want to teach you this, and I want to teach you that." To me, the people that were the biggest mentors were the ones that really believed in me and saw something in me, like Donner, and the people that worked at Microcraft. They saw something in me that I didn't know was there. And to be a good mentor, I think in our world, is to really see someone, see their vision, be able to see their vision.
Their potential.
Yes, and their potential. Good word. Yes, to definitely. And Lars Pripp was another one. Lars is no longer with us in this world, and so I hope to see him, of course, a long time from now. But
Yeah.
Lars was big. Lars was a contract drafter engineer that worked at Beloit Corp when I was there, and Lars was a huge staple in my life. He was the one that kept telling me, don't you dare let those people put you down. Don't you dare listen to them, Lizzie, he'd always say to me. Don't you dare listen to them. He was one of my biggest cheerleaders.
I think it takes that repetitive, don't listen to them, don't let them get you down. Don't. I think it takes a lot to block that out.
Yes.
I think it takes repetitiveness to be reminded of that.
Yeah.
So thank God for him,
Yes.
right?
Yes, most definitely. Well, then fast forward, my dad worked out at the airport, so Black Hawk Aircraft Maintenance was where Dad was at, and I, of course, grew up with them because Dad was always out there and introducing me to all that. And so Nick Quint was another one that was always interested in what I had going on, and he was always so happy that I was so interested in what he had going on, and I would say to him, okay, take me over to that airplane, tell me what you're doing, and Joe, of course, Nick unfortunately passed away as well, and Joe has taken over, that role, which I need to get out there and visit Joe too, but that just being around people in aviation and that mentor and being a part of the air show. And Julia Dacey was another huge mentor of mine. She was from Dacey Air Shows, and they were the company that ran the air show back then, and Julia was a huge staple. She really was the one that made me realize what happens in an air show and how do you put this together, and governmental contracts and all the things. So there's just so many. There's so many that have, and I'm, we could probably do another show just on that. The people have touched my life.
Yeah. Well, thank you for going through that, because I think that a lot of people in even small ways, all the way up to the big ways, are who shape us, and if you're listening to those kinds of people and those are the voices that you're hearing and you're trying to put out the negative voices, like, aren't we just better for that? So, I mean, thank God we've got people like that that can speak to us and speak to you. And you know, I'm grateful that you're naming them and realizing, hopefully they're watching this show and knowing what a big part of your life they had in whatever way. You know, they might not have even have realized it at the time, but looking back.
Well, and I think it puts a new name on best friends too, right? So mentors and leaders and best friends. You know, I also have always been a firm believer is you don't just have one. You know, back when we were a little kid, right? I'm your best friend, and then all of a sudden they said, no, they're your best friend. That would hurt your feelings, right? I've now, you know, in my 50s realized I got lots of best friends. Lots.
There's no limit on best friends.
Right.
Thank God.
Yes. Thank God is right.
God.
Agree.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what would you, you know, we've talked about a lot of different things today and how your experiences have shaped and brought you to this point where you are an amazing artist and an amazing creative coach and helping people and all of this. Like, what would you say to an aspiring artist, anybody? I'm going to say that the 18-year-old that is just graduated high school. What would you say to them? What would be your advice to get the most out of their life?
I would say wholeheartedly is dream and go after that dream. And if something happens that dream can't, it just won't hook, dream again. And if that dream doesn't dream, or that one doesn't hook either, dream again. Because to find those things that are our path, our destiny, our purpose, whatever that is, I think sometimes it's not just one and done. It's definitely not one and done. And you never know who you're going to meet while you dream these dreams. You never know who's going to inspire you. You never know who's going to now be your friend. That will be your friend forever. There's so much more to just dreaming and doing your passion and helping people. It's the people, it's the journey. I think my sister said it very eloquently. It is the journey, and enjoy the journey, even the bumps in the road, because even those bumps really shape how you look at life and how you look at other people. And don't ever don't compare yourself. Don't compare yourself. Your art, your music, your anything. I mean, if you want to compare something because you want to learn from somebody else who has maybe got a little bit better talent than you, by all means. But don't compare. Don't do that to yourself. Always look at what you do. Love what you do. Love your being, your spirit. And when you do see someone else getting to do the things, like for me, instance, never got to be a flight attendant, but I love talking to flight attendants, and I love getting to find out what they're doing, and so I get to live kind of vicariously through them instead of say, well, I'm not going to like you because you got to do what I didn't get to do.
Yeah.
So I think we live in a world where there's so much comparison, there's so much critical, there's so much noise, and stay focused. Stay focused on what that is. Stay focused on your dreams, stay in your passions, and go for it. And if someone is telling you, don't do it, don't listen. Do it. Do it because it's your path. It's your life. Figure it out. Figure it out on your own. And if later you find out that, maybe they were right, go back and tell them that they were right. Be honest. Be hopeful. Be grand. Just live. Live your passion. Live. Don't live to die. Live to live.
That is amazing advice. Thank you for that. I feel like that is what I needed to hear. I feel like everybody out there is, again, with the setbacks and all of the distractions and the anything that's going to take you away from what you really want to do. I feel like you have to be able to tune that out, you know, and
Yes.
focus on you, what you
Yes.
want to do. And if it's important to you, then it's important to you, and you need to explore that in any way, shape, or form or avenue that you can. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. And it's all here, right?
Yeah.
That's
self-talk.
it is self-talk. Yes. Subconscious. What are you telling yourself? What, that's, and I always think about, you get in the boat and you get thrown out of the boat, and then you get in the boat tips you over again, and then you hit this wave and you're out of the boat, and then you get back in the boat. Just keep getting back in the boat.
Keep getting back in the boat.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's going to be my new mantra from
Yay.
now on. Keep getting back in the boat.
Cool.
Get back in the boat.
Get back in the boat. Yes.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
going to be a little soggy, but just get back in the boat.
All right. Well, thank you, Liz, so much for talking to us today, sharing your history, basically, with us, and all of the things that you not only have overcome, but like showed who's boss.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And thank you very much for all of this and being a part of this, and also, being the host today. You did an amazing job.
Yeah,
And
this
yes.
ain't gonna happen to, no. I'm not real comfortable here. I love hearing people's stories, though. I love getting to know people even better, and a lot of the stuff that we've talked about today, I am familiar with, but there was some stuff too that I am, I'm just so grateful that you were able to open up and share with us, to your viewers and the JATV viewers, and I'm very excited for your future, because I know that it's wide open to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you so much.
Well, you're very welcome. You're very welcome.
Life moves in waves, sometimes gentle and rhythmic, sometimes wild and unpredictable. But no matter the tide, creativity is the force that keeps us afloat, guiding us through challenges, turning uncertainty into adventure, and transforming experience into wisdom. It is the current that lifts us, shapes us, and reminds us that every single moment holds the power of lots of possibility. Like the ever-changing ocean, life is not a straight path. It's a twist, turns, surges forward, offering endless opportunities, and they're all waiting to be seized by us. Age is not a barrier. Always remember that it's not. It is a gateway to new beginnings. Every lesson learned, every tide we have weathered, every storm we have navigated has prepared us for the next great adventure. Now is the time to dive into those long-held dreams, explore new passions, and use our wisdom to uplift and inspire others. Whether it's picking up a brush to paint new horizons, mentoring future visionaries, or finally launching that dream project, it's never too late to set sail towards something new. The waves behind us have strengthened us for the journey ahead. As we step into this exciting chapter, we ride forward with courage, transforming knowledge into purpose, embracing creativity in all its forms, and allowing it to carry us to new shores of discovery. The best moments are still waiting to be created, and this journey, like the vast, endless ocean, is never finished. It is only just beginning. So here we stand, at the edge of possibility, where dreams meet action and creativity unlocks the future. No more waiting. This is the moment to step boldly into the life we've always imagined, fueled by passion, resilience, and the endless potential within all of us, truly within all of us. Thank you so much for joining us on Loving Life Creatively today. I am super excited for you to be here and to listen to my story. I'm very grateful and honored to be here on episode 12, sharing everything about me. And I just really want to encourage all of you to utilize creativity as a tool to find your passions like I have. And you can find me at the end of this. You'll find my website and reach out to me. Email me if you have any questions, or if there's something that I spoke about today that really resonates with you and you feel that I can help you, please reach out. I'd be inspired to, really. It is my passion and my focus in this world today to help you find your creative side and to really unlock a new beginning for you, no matter what that is. It doesn't even mean to be that you are in a season that you really need something new. You might just stumble across something that will profoundly make you travel into another universe. It's truly been an honor sharing this time with you. Creating is an exhilarating escape that quiets the mind and fuels positivity. When you dive into the creative process, it is really like flipping a switch that drowns out all the noise and fills you with a very vibrant energy. Every brushstroke, word, or note it's a step towards a joyful accomplishment, making the world brighter and your spirit always just a little lighter. Creating really truly is for everyone. Keep creating, keep inspiring, and keep loving life creatively. I can't wait for next time.